Hey there, welcome to the Astro Psyche. This is a live stream Astro chat. Today is, what day is it? Today is May 15th, or May 19th, sorry, rather. And I'm excited to just chat with you. This is a casual space, casual chat space where my intention is to share some ideas and then also hear your questions and interests as well. So today, because we have a new moon in Taurus, I thought that we would chat briefly about that and sort of welcome in that new moon energy. And then I also wanted to share and talk about the process of learning astrology. Because that's something that's kind of come up a lot recently in my client work, and then also just things that I'm hearing from folks as well in the astrological community. And I wanted to talk particularly about synthesis of the chart and how to, it feels like there's this missing piece in the astrology education space around synthesizing all of the pieces and all of the parts. And so I wanted to kind of talk about why I think that may be and how that may be missing. So first, what we'll do is pull a couple of cards to set the space. It's kind of cool because the first live stream that I did recently, where I started doing these every week, was during the Scorpio full moon eclipse, and now we're at the new moon today, new moon in Taurus. So new moon is, of course, about planting new seeds, new intentions, new ideas, and it's, I think, also about noticing where there's already that newness happening in your life, where like what in your life is already, without your conscious effort, like where is there already a new beginning happening? And I'm also thinking of how this can be a great way to simply begin with astrology by looking at how the lunations are falling into your birth chart. So which house do you have Taurus in this particular case, and whatever house, whatever area of life this house is symbolizing is this area of new beginning. Okay, so I'm going to pull 3 cards. And so this is for this new moon, this monthly lunar cycle. And so we can think of the lunar cycles in terms of months. So about 28-ish days from this new moon in Taurus today until the next new moon about a month from now. And we can also think about this as a 6-month cycle, because 6 months from now, we're going to have a full moon in Taurus. So it's kind of like the broader culmination, the broader cycle. And then, of course, we can also think of it as a 1-year cycle from new moon in Taurus to new moon in Taurus. And again, this is very connected to this concept of these cycles. I think that we can think about it as returning to Taurus, because we're going from new moon in Taurus to full moon in Taurus to the next new moon in Taurus a year from now. And this is also rooting into your birth chart. So we're not just rooting into Taurus, we're rooting into where in your chart is Taurus, what house is that, and what house, what area of life is getting activated every time that we have this lunation in Taurus, and how is your life continuing to elaborate in these ways? Where's the newness happening? Where's that culmination happening in 6 months? And what is the broader cycle over the course of a year? Okay. And And I was going to pull a card, but we're just going to, I'm feeling like just grounding for a moment. So I would love it if you did that with me. So if you can, if it's safe for you to do so, of course, I want you to close your eyes and take a seat if you can. And even if you're walking or moving, you're going to bring your focus into your body, into your breath. Feel your energy moving down into the ground so that you're anchoring energetically down into the earth. Taurus is the earth. Taurus is anchoring us at this time. And then allowing the earth to rise and to meet you, so that earth energy is moving up through your whole body. And you can imagine this as a beautiful light of any color that you like. So that light is flowing from the earth up through your whole body and up out of the top of your head. And then you're encircled in this beautiful light. Again, any color, it can be white or golden, or it can be any color that comes to you spontaneously. And this whole time you're focused on your body and your breath and having this very gentle, concentrated focus on your body, your breath, your inner physical experience. So again, here we're rooting into Taurus with the physical senses, which connect us to body as well as psyche. They connect us to the physical as well as the other world, the unseen. And when you feel ready, you can come back with me. Okay, so 3 cards. So this overall is presenting as about career and finances. Though it could be something different. I don't know. Let's see what it is. Okay, so the first card is the 6 of Materials. This is also the 6 of Pentacles. This is about generosity. Generosity, sharing with others what you have to give, and it's about being lavish and generous and considerate. Now, I pulled this card reversed. So this, I wonder if this could be a feeling of having a lack of resources. I don't take it as you're being stingy, though that could be the case, but it's like there's a feeling where there's either you're not feeling like you're receiving, or like there's reciprocity in a situation, or maybe you feel, could be simply feeling depleted and like you need to renew and find a source of energy. I'm really drawn to, especially when it's reversed, I'm really drawn to this rose in the center that's kind of like this starburst behind it. And this is reminding me of the solar plex energy and that energy of having confidence and having the stamina to be out in the world, and that energy, that vitality, that life force. So this tells me that there's something here around having the energy and maybe the confidence, but it also feels like renewing yourself. Now, we are at a new moon point. So the new moon is typically when our energy is a little bit lower, where we tend to want to cozy up and cuddle up and chill a little bit more, because we're more connected to the unseen world, the unseen energy, versus the physical material world. And so it's really interesting that the 6 of material, also known as the 6 of Pentacles, that's very much about having resources in the material world. And so there's like a connection here. There's this connection to having physical energy and your life force, as well as having your needs and security met. And this card is saying that this is possible for you. Yes, of course. And there's something here around maybe this is leading me into the next card. There's something here maybe about asking for something, asking for help or support, or maybe receiving in a different kind of way. I wonder how this is landing for you. The second card is the Page of Materials. So pages, and it has this, I love this image. It's a figure with a dress that's printed with roses, and then their head is like a big giant rose, and it's sort of like their head is like connecting into this larger rose. So pages are typically about a message or new information. This can be from a person, or it can be a new awareness. It's new information coming to you. Can also be travel as well, or change or transition. Pages have a sort of mercurial kind of symbolism to them. They're about change and transition, crossing thresholds. So the Page of Materials is about seeking new information regarding your material, physical needs. The Page of Materials is also about slowing down to do this, slowing down to receive information. And because I'm like really drawn to this, again, the rose here. So I will say this deck is heavy on floral images, and there's a lot of roses, but in these cards that I've picked in particular, it's like all roses. Like there's no other flowers that are happening. So I think that's really interesting. The rose is this symbol of the mysteries and things continuing to unfold. Roses are also very fragrant as well, and they have all of these, there's so many different kinds and different fragrances. But I'm really like feeling the crown chakra energy here, receiving insights and wisdom from the divine. And so, I don't know, maybe this is like sitting in meditation, doing some journaling where you're just doing a stream of consciousness. That may be a helpful way to receive new information, especially during this new moon. And then the third card is the Ten of Materials. So this card is about having all of your needs met. It's about abundance and celebration, and it's very connected to family and ancestors and receiving the gifts of your ancestors. I know that so often, especially now, we're becoming more aware of how our ancestry has affected us in sometimes a challenging or negative way, how the trauma and pain and struggle that our ancestors have experienced is literally in our DNA, and that shows up in different ways for us, that they scientifically that is something that is transmitted. And this card is reminding us that we also have the gifts of our ancestors. We have the wisdom, and we have all of our lineage is for us to claim and to receive. And that we do that through connecting with our ancestors, through holding their hand. And this can be ancestors, this can be spirit guides. I think that, take what resonates for you. But this is really about connecting with your roots. This tree is rooting into the ground, and then seeing what wants to blossom from what you have to give. I think this is also like really connecting in for me about connecting with your birth chart, with your astrological ancestry, so to speak, like your astrological blueprint and what is so true for you. And this is something that I've been really talking about a lot recently in my client work, is when we look at the birth chart, we're like going into, okay, what is most true for you over the course of your life? And then that's going to look different in different decades, in different phases of life, in different circumstances. And we always want to return to that. So you're going to be having, this transit and that transit and this life experience, this thing that happens, but we always want to return to the birth chart, and to, because we can get distracted or conditioned to go outside of ourselves, and we all do this happens. And I think that's one of the beautiful gifts of astrology, is that it helps us to return, and it helps us to know what is ours, what is us, and what is the external influence. And there's so many ways to do this, of course. We can do this through meditation and self-reflection and energy work and tarot and the I Ching and on and on. And astrology is one way that I find very helpful. So when I'm looking at this, to sort of wrap up this portion, these cards, when I'm looking at this, there's something here, like there's a need, there's a craving, there's a desire. And I wonder if maybe there's something that you have to share that, like, there's a little, like, undervaluing what it is that you have to give. This is something that has come up a lot too, in talking with clients, is that just because what you have as a gift is intangible or not measurable does not mean that it is not needed and that it is not of value. And so this here is like, there's something here that you're really excited to share, and that other people really need it. Other people need to hear your messages, and that there is growth and abundance and deeper connection with the roots of who you are when you share this. So take that how it lands. If that resonates, let me know, or what, I'm curious what comes to you. And I'm also curious what your experience is with this new moon in particular, how you're feeling. I think that this new moon, like I mentioned in my weekly video, feels like a lot of fresh energy coming in. So, okay, so I wanted to chat about my experience of learning how, not just learning astrology, but learning how to read charts. And I wanted to talk about this for a couple of different reasons. So I have a lot of different thoughts here and notes, and I'm going to try to share them in a way that feels as cohesive as possible. And of course, as I say at the beginning of all of my readings, I love questions. I love when you share. So whether you're listening live, hi, by the way, hi Emerald and Rima, good to see you here. Whether you're here live with me or listening to the recording, when you share, that tends to open up more ideas for me. So I love it when you share or ask questions. So there's sort of two different ways that this has come up. Is number one is that I often have clients in a reading ask me how they can learn, like what books I would recommend for them to learn astrology and to go deeper into this. And so that's kind of like, that is a part of why I wanted to bring this in, is that I think that people are really curious to learn astrology, and I think there's this like excitement and enthusiasm. And I find that it's not as simple as reading books, and so I'm going to dissect that a bit. So that's part one, is this, for me, like learning how to respond to this desire for folks to really understand astrology and to read charts in particular. The other piece of this is that I've had a lot of folks who have taken courses and read books and learned astrology, who are like, Shawna, I don't know how to synthesize all of this information. Like, I know all of these different things. I know what the planets and the houses and the aspects mean, but when it comes to actually reading a chart, whether that's their chart or a friend's or, family, it's difficult for them to bring all of that in to where it's like, okay, this is what all of this means. It's difficult to synthesize the information and to essentially read the chart in a way that flows and is cohesive. And so I want to speak to each of this because I think that they're connected and they're related. And so part of this is coming from my clients, and a part of this is being in the astrological community. And so I want to start with an astrology, so a lot of different thoughts here. I want to start with saying that my impression is that astrology as we know it now is presented to the public in a way that severely simplifies the art of astrology in the way that it really is. And a part of this is sun sign columns. I think we don't realize that the very first sun sign column came out around the 1950s. So astrology is very old. It has been around, as far as like natal charts, it's been around since like 100 AD-ish. Don't quote me on that date, but around that time. So for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years, we've been looking at a natal chart, and astrology has been the horoscope. It has been looking at your birth chart and what that means and the transits. It's been this very complicated system that pre-computers and pre the technology that we have now, it required a lot of math, and it required drawing the chart by hand, which usually took like half an hour or so. And even once we had, this technology to be able to pull up a chart very quickly, astrology has always been this sort of like mixture. I often compare it to a soup or a recipe where there's all of these different ingredients, and then your birth chart is your particular flavor. And there are certain things that may taste similar, but there's nothing that's quite like you. And there's so many factors involved. And in the 1950s, there was a person, I think it was a person in England who came up with this idea for doing a sun sign column and sort of like a prediction based on your sun sign. And this became very popular because people like to hear about themselves and they like to know what's going to happen. It was something that was fun and easy and accessible. And I think that that is a benefit of sun sign columns, on YouTube when we have the readings for your sign. A benefit is that it's very accessible and you don't need to know anything about astrology in order to appreciate it. Now, I find that the public view of astrology now sort of sees astrology as this very limited, very basic thing, that it's 12 signs and that's it. And that's changed a little bit, right? So now the new thing now in recent years is people are aware of their big three. They're aware of that it's important to know your sun sign, your moon sign, and your rising. And that's sort of like the new version, I think, of knowing your sign, knowing your sun sign. And I think that folks don't realize that it's so much more complicated and nuanced than that, because we're not just looking at the planet in the sign or even the planet in the sign and the house. We're looking at the dignity of the planet. How strong or weak is it? How does it relate to the other planets that it's connected to via aspect? How does it relate to the houses that it rules, not just the house that it's in? And how do all of these and also, what's the timing of this? What's the transit that's connecting into the planet based on the house that it rules, based on the other aspects that it's making, and how all of this can come together, not just in theory, but in real time. And so I think this is a part of what's happening, is that there's a lot of books and a lot of courses that will teach someone about the basic building blocks, but there's a gap in books and resources when it comes to synthesizing all of this information. And I think a part of that is because it's difficult to learn how to synthesize from a book, because in my experience, synthesizing and learning how to read for yourself or for someone comes through practice and learning, oh, this person has this this makeup and this is what their life looks like, and learning through experience. Now, I think another part of this is that because astrology comes from, astrology's roots are really in divination. And I would even say that astrology is sort of this alchemical kind of process, because of course, astrology, we can look at like, okay, this, the moon is in this sign, it's going to make this aspect at this particular time. It's all very planned out, and we can know exactly what's going to happen, but we don't know exactly how it's going to happen. And so astrology has this sort of, it's connected into the moment in time that two people come together to look at a particular question that's very important. And when I was thinking about this morning, I was thinking about how alchemical astrology is, because it's not just that I'm reading your chart, it's that you're coming to me with a very specific, with a burning question or a burning desire to know more at this particular time. And at this particular time, there's something that comes through via the chart, through my particular perspective, and then that is shared with you, and that there is no other moment that is like this moment, and that's very different than looking at your chart by yourself, or anyone looking at their chart by themselves. Astrology is very relational in this way, and that, and I think that a lot of arts are this way, where it's, I think that the self-help industry has, and even capitalism and a patriarchal kind of way of being, has conditioned us to think that when we are independent and when we can do something by ourselves, that we are better, that is the way to go. That if we can just learn more, buy more books, take more courses, if we can just get the information, that will satiate, that will satisfy. And if I've learned anything from my training in counseling, it's that we need each other to see each other. That we are seeing and learning about ourselves by being in relationship and by connecting and by sharing and then receiving. This is reminding me of the tarot card that we picked at the beginning. That and this is what an astrology reading is, and this is how we learn about ourselves via astrology, through this this container. So alchemy is about transformation via containment. And it's about the process of transformation that happens when we put things together in a vessel, and then we allow for that natural process to percolate through its different phases. And we're not like pulling the different parts out and then studying them. We're allowing that process to percolate and to gestate. And then there's something that comes out that is greater than, the whole is greater than the parts. And so I want us to reframe what it is that we receive from astrology, because astrology is not for me. So like, this is my perspective, right? Astrology is not an information-based experience. Though there is a lot of information that is relayed, and I usually say that, right? I always record the session for you because it is a lot of information to take in. And there's a part of it that is relational, that's a relational transformational process, and that is a channeling process as well. And a part of this is that, I was thinking about this morning too, is that when we do a reading together, there's information that is exchanged and there's an experience that is had. And then we allow that to sit. We put all of that, we create the vessel, which is the reading, which is the session, that 1 hour time. And all of these things happen, and then we sort of like set that vessel over here, and we allow things to percolate and to happen subconsciously. And then at some point, something new is presented. And so sometimes something new when I say something new is presented, this is an alchemical thing too, is that there's a new thing. In Jungian psychology, this is called the transcendent function, where when there's a tension or like a quandary or something that you're not sure about, and you hold that tension without trying to figure out the answer, that the answer will reveal itself, the answer will arise. And then something comes out of that. And that happens ideally when we let things sit, when we let it simmer, when we reflect on it, when we muse on it, without trying to get more information to put in the pot. And I hope that makes sense. And I think that we're, this doesn't mean that we do a one and done, you do one reading and that's it. It's more about thinking of astrology as an experience, and that you're not receiving just information, you're having an experience, and then we're allowing that to happen. And that it is the relationship, it is the relational experience. This is my counseling background talking. It's the relational experience that is transformative, not necessarily the information. Though, of course, information can be incredibly transformational for us. So I just wanted to bring that in because I think that's very like anti-self-help, and it's really speaking to more of how I've experienced astrology when I receive and even any reading of any kind, and how I experience it as an astrologer offering readings to you as well. Okay, so I want to just pause for a moment, take a sip of tea, and I'm curious how that lands with you. I feel like I just said a lot of things. Emerald says, I just got chills when you said we need each other to see each other. Yeah, and I think that that's so important, and I think that we don't, like, we're not programmed to think that way. We're programmed so much to think that we need to figure it out on our own, and that we're like, self-made but yeah, like relationship is the healing function. Relationship is how we like work out our stuff, and I think it's so interesting how like that's how projection works, right? Is that we project something about ourselves onto someone else, and then somehow, usually at some point, we're like, oh my gosh, that thing, or that person is, there's that kind of like hooking into other people, and that's how we get to know ourselves. And I think that I'm seeing a lot of kind of like a craving for connection again from folks, especially coming out of, I guess I would say, are we in a post-pandemic era? I think it is. I think I can safely say that. But I think that, I don't know about you, but for me, I realized how important that regular connection is, and that we really need that social and the relationship. Okay. So the last piece of this that I want to say, to sort of wrap this up, is that, and I realize I didn't say a lot about my personal experience and how I learned astrology. That was my intention, but I kind of got on a roll there. So maybe I'll share more about that in another video. But yeah, so how does one really learn how to synthesize the chart? And so this is kind of the other piece. So I feel like what I just talked about was understanding that astrology is a complex art, and in the East they consider it a science, that it is something that is very complex, and that I've spent years and hundreds of hours studying and learning how to talk to someone about their chart, how to synthesize things, and I'm still learning. It's something that I think that we can always be learning over a lifetime, and that astrology is not necessarily an informational thing, and that yes, learning through books I think can be interesting and helpful. And what I feel that people are really craving when they want to learn astrology is they're craving a connection with self, and that comes through astrology paired with relationship with connection. And so the other piece of this is for folks who are interested in learning how to consult with clients, who are interested in learning how to read charts, whether that is just something for fun, that's a hobby, or if that's something that you want to do more professionally and be paid for it. The number one thing that I hear from people who want to read charts is that they're like, I have learned all of the things and I don't know how to synthesize, or I don't know how to actually read a chart for another live person. And so how do we do this? I think that it takes doing it in real time and practicing. And that was my experience, is that I learned all of the things. And then at one point, I had an astrology reading with an astrologer, and she said something to the effect of, I feel like I'm in the presence of someone who is a budding astrologer. And then I was, at that point, I was just kind of like, I had a lot of things that I was figuring out, and astrology was one thing that I was interested in. And I was like, oh, and it sort of gave me that permission to experiment. And so I just started giving free astrology readings to as many people as I could. And at that time, I was on a business networking Facebook page. And so I offered that and it had like a frick ton of people on there. So I just gave, I think, something like 40, 50 readings in 1 month, for free, because I was so excited. Now, I don't necessarily recommend that, because I think that an energy exchange is important, but I'm just telling you what I took away from that is that I very rapidly gained a lot of information about what the lived experience is of certain aspects of certain chart configurations, because I was seeing something in the chart and then someone was telling me about experiences that they were having. So I was doing this for free because I was learning. And I think that can be one way to go. I think that the astrological community, one of the challenges is that there's no infrastructure for learning right now. So this has become very clear to me as I've gone through my training to become a counselor, to become a therapist, because when you, like a lot of fields, when you go to school to be a therapist, there's curriculum in training you, not just in counseling skills, but in real time how to practice and how to do that. And then there is what's called a practicum, where under supervision, you counsel other people. And you have guidance to do that. And there's this container, there's a supervisor who helps you work through things, and you do consultations, and talk about how things are going and what your challenges are. And so there's this entire framework, and this is to become a therapist in California, you're required to have 3,000 hours of training before you can be fully licensed. And so that's like a massive amount of hours and time. And we don't really have that in the astrology community. And I know that there's a lot of debate on whether something like that should be implemented. And there's a lot of organizations that are starting to create that kind of infrastructure. And so my point in all of this is saying that it takes talking to actual other human beings in order to synthesize the chart. So kind of interesting. I didn't really think about this when I began, but talking about experiencing astrology as a relational experience, a reading as a relational experience. And when it comes to learning to synthesize, that also needs to be done via relationship. that we cannot, in my opinion, we cannot learn how to synthesize a chart without doing that in real time with another human being. And so, and I think also part of that is, learning basic counseling skills, learning how to be aware of if a person needs to be referred out for a higher level of care to a therapist or a doctor or something like that. And then I think also even for folks who are seeing clients for, and receiving money for that and doing that as a professional practice. And I know some of you that follow me are doing that. So I think that even for those of us who are practicing professionals as astrologers, it can be really helpful to have peer consultation where we can talk to other practicing astrologers about a difficult case or something that we've experienced, or even just themes that we're noticing in our practice. And so I wonder how all of that lands. This is something that I've been thinking about a lot, and that I may bring into my local astrology group. I'm not quite sure how that's all going to lay out, but I've just been really thinking about it a lot. And so I wanted to name it because, again, I feel that synthesizing the chart is one of the most, it's like a huge gap in the astrology education community, where there's so many classes that we can take on learning the basics of astrology and even very advanced techniques. But when it comes to how to put these things into practice, I don't see a lot of that. And maybe I'm missing it. I know that OPA, the Organization for Professional Astrologers, is hosting I think it's pretty regularly that they're hosting sort of like these mini cohorts of where you can do a 3-day experience where you do this, where you talk about, it's kind of like a peer consultation group where you talk about your process of reading charts, and then you talk about, you share ideas with each other. And I think that's a good start, but it is only 3 days and it's very expensive. And so my hope is to, again, just name this. And I don't know, maybe this is boring for you guys, I don't know, but I just am really excited about it lately. And I wanted to name this and sort of brainstorm on how we can bring more support and education into what it actually means to read a chart, and so that we can share with, have what do I want to say here? I would love to see a deeper understanding. I would love to see the mainstream public media, etc., to have a deeper level of understanding of what astrology actually is. And so I hope that, and I think that is starting to happen with things like the astrology podcast becoming more mainstream, and how topics covered on that podcast are really speaking to the depth and nuance of astrology, that it's not just sun sign. And so I think with that comes all of this this dissemination of new information and new understanding. And so I wanted to speak to that today. So I hope that you enjoyed this, and it was nice to share space with you briefly. I am wishing you a wonderful new moon. I hope that this period is fruitful, is deeply connecting and nourishing for you as well. Wishing you a wonderful weekend, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.